Well, hey y'all, happy Monday. So today we're gonna talk about a little bit about seed to harvest dates. Kind of getting down to the nitty gritty about what the packet says and what really happens when we plant our plants. I told a telltale on myself and said I wasn't gonna plant any tomatoes, but I am while we actually have this conversation about days to harvest. If you haven't printed off the Maricopa County garden planting calendar, another great reason to do it is simply for this time to harvest, which is, you know, typically found on the back of seed packets, but this also kind of gives you a pretty good range. So like tomatoes, you know, depending on the strain, if you will, or the cultivar of it, it can be ready to harvest in 50 days all the way out to the big tomatoes that will take like 120 days to harvest. So if you get into seed swaps where you don't have seed packets, you could always Google seed to harvest days, but this calendar here is a good reference. And you know, now that it's Nebraska season, as we mentioned a week or so ago, you see that our days to harvest really get out there, like 130, 150. So that's why, you know, it's inherent that we get into planting these crops earlier. So we're gonna get into some planting over here and chat a little bit more about understanding these days to harvest dates. When we're going to be chatting about seed to harvest, I had a request recently for a video about that, and so that's what we're going to chat about today. And you're also going to catch me telling on myself because I told you guys that I wasn't going to do any more tomatoes, but you know me, I'm crazy and I've got issues. So I'm actually, this kind of goes along with today's video because these are the shortest days to harvest tomatoes that I've got. And even one of them is like, I think, really short. Like this Matt's Wild Cherry, this is, I think, maybe 60 days. So this, like I said, goes along with today's video because we get, you know, information from these seed packets that say, you know, for instance, like most of these tomatoes are maxing out at, you know, 75 days to harvest. So this is an old plant. It's that huckleberry that was in here. Oh, get your knife. Okay, so like most of these plants are supposed to be 75 days to harvest. So let's think about it like this. So right now is August 1st, or yesterday was, you know, so today's August 1st, and 75 days would roughly put us like in the middle of October. Okay, so that's saying that the middle of October is about when these tomatoes should be ready. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, and there's things that affect it too. So a couple of things that affect it are, like, one, are you starting it indoors and then transplanting it, or are you direct sowing it like I am here? So when you're direct sowing it like this, I'm taking out the steps that are that would delay my days to harvest, because otherwise, you know what, I should go get my little, yeah, I'm gonna go get my thing and show it to you guys. So I've been meaning to talk about this. I got this for Mother's Day and it's the bomb. So it just kind of goes back and forth like this, but it's great for sitting down and working on bags like this in a row. So I'm gonna get reset up over here, and then you'll see I can just slide up and down the row. So So 75 days is when, you know, this should theoretically be ready to be picked, eaten, and enjoy your tomatoes. Like I said, going from maybe a seed cup or indoors can affect that process as well, because it's going to have to go through transplant, and when it gets transplanted, that's when it has another opportunity to go into shock or to have issues that can delay the time from planting to actual harvest. So right now I'm sowing these, you know, directly into the bag, over planting a little bit so that I can pick from one of however many of these come up, and then I'm not gonna have to worry about transplanting it, and I'm not gonna have to worry about it going through any shock, and maybe I can get closer to those days. Now, I do know from past experience with growing plants indoors that there is a little bit more to be understood, in my opinion, about this days to harvest, because obviously me dropping these seeds in here right now, they're not automatically gonna start becoming an active part of this plant. You know, they've got to germinate. So I think it's important to take into consideration the way that the plant cycle works, and you know, then that can really help us understand the days to harvest as well. So because, you know, any given seed can take, darn fly, any given seed can take, you know, anywhere from 5 to 10 days, sometimes maybe 14 days to germinate, depending on, you know, the ambient temperatures and the soil temperatures. You know, it can take a little bit to germinate. So really and truly, I don't really think about seed to harvest dates starting at least until germination has taken place. And then from germination, we've also really essentially got a seedling stage. You know, a seedling stage, I definitely would say, goes into that area or, you know, that time where the seedling's getting its first, say, 3 or 4 sets of leaves. To me, that's still a seedling. That typically that plant does not produce anything. It's just a seedling still. So then after it gets through the seedling stage, which again can be another 7 to 14 days, and that's if everything's ideal. You know, that means it got good light, it got good water, it got fertilized, and most conditions with it were good, you know. And then after the seedling stage, you really have to think about then the vegetative stage. And I'd say with even tomatoes here, you know, that first 30 days or so of the plant growing and getting established, that's the vegetative stage. And some plants, you know, like the brassicas, we actually eat them in the vegetative state. Because if you've ever allowed a broccoli to, you know, make some broccoli and leave some broccoli on there, and then you let that broccoli turn into flowers, then you know that when we eat broccoli, we're eating it in the vegetative state, versus tomatoes that grow through a vegetative state where they're, you know, a plant developing and becoming strong enough to bear flowers. That's the flowering stage. And then bear fruit or vegetable, whatever the plant variety is. And then we eat the fruit. Or, you know, like in the case of this, the flower produces its seed bearer, which is the tomato, and the seeds can be saved from the tomato and so forth. And so so then, okay, so let's go back. So a seedling or germination, 5 to 10 days. Then seedling stage, say 7 to 14 days. And then the vegetative state, again, depending on some tomatoes, could be 30 to 60 days before that plant ever starts to make any flowers and start getting into what we call the flowering or fruiting stage. And so when we eat, when we're eating in season and we're eating the vegetables that are the, you know, that bear fruit or bear vegetables, that, you know, that's how they transport their seed, then that, you know, is the end game there. So that can be another 30 to 60 days that the plant flowers and bears fruit or vegetable for you. So that's why, to me, we get a little skewed with the planting calendars, or, you know, what it says on the seed packet, 75 days. I really think we've got to take into consideration like I said, the rest of the dynamics that are happening there, and considering the different phases. And once again, that's the germination days, the seedling days, the vegetative or the growing days, and then the flowering or fruiting days. So I hope this is helpful in considering how to plant things, and looking at seed packets and getting an understanding for why the dates don't always necessarily match up, and remembering that, you know, if you plant them in a cup inside or plant them in a cup outside, you still are going to have to go through that transplant phase. And anytime something transplants, you know, it could take, you know, another 7 to 10 days for that plant to acclimate and get happy again and get refocused and redirected on actually producing fruit again, flowering, etc. So figure that into your days to plant, and also get that that's the explanation for why we plant tomatoes so early, like in January and stuff. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you have the best day ever. So I realized that I kind of breezed past this a little too fast and didn't give it proper. So the wheels only go back and forth, like they don't turn on an angle or anything, but I don't mind, because like I said, it's good for working right up and down these bags. And the seat kind of lowers and lifts by doing that. And then down here, you know, is a little tray for you know, putting my tools and stuff in, and I take care of it. I just pick it up like this and I roll it back up onto the patio so that it stays nice. And we happened to see this like on an ad. I think I was looking for a trailer, and it's actually from Harbor Freight. I'm not sponsored by them, and I tried to get you guys a coupon code, but they were like, we don't even do that. So, but if you're like me and you're getting old and rickety in the hips, you might consider getting yourself something cool like this to save on the hips and the knees. So if you've got any questions, it wasn't crazy expensive, and like I said, it was a Mother's Day gift. I hope that was super helpful, and if you've got any questions, I'd love to get into a conversation about this with you down below. So have yourself the best day ever, and thanks for stopping by whenever you get a chance.